So Cosme, talk to me a little bit about how you see people using Google products in in the middle of this pandemic, and how it's all coming together. So, and your part in that, because I know that you've played an integral role in that. So,
Yeah, so this has definitely caused a lot of people to work more in isolation. You can't go out, you can't um, go out and say meet with a bunch of people nowadays. There's definitely a lot of caution and selectivity as to who people meet, and as in these days and times that we're living in, right? We're finding access to other people really restrictive, right? In the sense of face to face. So, like I said before, you're seeing people use Hangouts a lot more. Obviously, there's other products out there that people are exploring. But for example, right, where you normally would use, say, a product like, say, FaceTime to do one-on-one, you're now having to deal with multiple people simultaneously. And doing that, some of our products are being utilized more extensively now than they ever have for just that purpose. It's not just a one-to-one communication, but it's a one-to-many or many-many to communication that's giving our applications more awareness and more utilization. So for us, to work from home or work remotely is just not just something you do once a week or maybe once every other week. Now we're doing this pretty much all the time. And so what we see now is that people are utilizing these products to do just that, is to try to figure out, how do I share this information in a way that I used to be able to just say, drive down for a meeting, or basically meet someone at the office, or maybe I have to sign something and go fax something, right? This is where, you can get a document, you can, if you have a scanner, scan it in, and then share that document from your drive to that party without having to, say, mail it, right?
right.
The other thing too is that you're starting to see a little bit more tolerance or a little bit more forgiveness in a sense of how things are received. By that I mean that it used to be like, we really need you to sign this piece of paper, and we need for you to kind of walk it down to our office. And now there are more, you're seeing more people saying, you know what, just share to me a PDF copy of that, right? That'll be good enough, right? So we're seeing a little bit more of what they call leniency to the authentication or authenticity of artifacts, right?
Right.
This is again where you come down to where if you got birth certificates, marriage licenses, those kinds of things, and they're scanned in and they're saved in a drive, and you can share that information as opposed to maybe having to have someone go out and just carry it down to an office, right? That's
right.
being facilitated more.
Cosme, one thing that we did, we went virtual back when Katrina hit, because we were based in Atlanta and there was no gasoline there. So we weren't in New Orleans, but people couldn't go to their offices, so they couldn't drive because there was no gas to be gotten. You couldn't fill up your car, and you may be able to get there, but you couldn't get home. So we actually had an intern that introduced us to Google products, and that was how we started moving our office virtually, because we were using donated space until then. But we were all coming together, and we had that issue with signed documents. But one thing that somebody told us is we could take and upload the document into our Google Drive, and then, like, even on your phone, you can get an app that will give you a legal signature. So it gives you the option to go in and pull up the document from your email. So we go into Google Drive and we pull that document down and we sign it, like literally on the screen on our phone. And then we say, attach it and resend it back. So it makes it a PDF. It puts it back in our Google Drive signed, and then it sends it to the person. And that's been accepted for legal documentation for a lot of different uses. But in our world, where your signature and the stamp and the documentation is everything, it's a big deal. But I know for a fact that, because we were strapped with that situation early on, and it was so great to be able to go into my Google Drive, and I was like, boop, boop, done, we're over. Like, I can't believe this. And I didn't have to find a scanner. But there is a scanner app that you can use, and you can actually, if somebody has mailed you a document, you can scan it on your phone, and then you can put it in your Google Drive, and then go and fish it out with that signature app. The lawyers, the pro bono partnership that we use for legal documents, they will accept documents through that app from Google Drive, which is pretty amazing. So it's always best to ask up front, but it's good to know, because in this environment where, you know, we can't go and sign something in someone's presence, at least for the meantime.
Yeah.
It's not safe to, you know, it's in your best interest not to.
Yeah. And I can't speak, obviously, I can't speak to the legal, what the legal forecast is.
Yeah, we had an attorney for that.
Yeah, exactly. But you can, with these tools, you can do that, right? You can sign a document, you can convert a document to PDF and then send that out, right? So that it's unchangeable. So you can definitely do those kinds of things as well. The other thing that has happened too is that, you know, and this is for people who have families or who are starting to have, realizing, right, that the teach from home or homeschooling isn't as easy as maybe we thought about it. So what Google has done is they partner with a bunch of different types of education systems, and they call this thing, they have two things. They've got Teach, right? Teach.google.com, which is a online resource for people who want to teach, or anyone actually who wants to teach. It's really geared towards educators, but it's also geared to people who want to do homeschool. So again, let's just say you are at that point where you're thinking like, well, you know, this could go on for a little bit, and I need to keep my child active. There's that resource you can go to help them with their schooling and help them.
Tell me again,
Google.com.
Okay.
Right? And the other one is Learn. I think it's called YouTube Learning or Learn YouTube. Oh, no, I think it's YouTube Learning. These just, believe it, and so this is what today is, Sunday. This just launched like the last 2 days. Okay. YouTube Learning is another site. It's geared towards 4 specific age ranges, or as three or four specific age ranges. And what they are is content geared towards children that want to use YouTube to help them with, you know, learning all different types of subjects, right? So we know that we can go to YouTube, we can figure out how to repair or change a tire. We can go to YouTube and figure out how to, you know, cook ramen soup. But we also wanted to create ways for parents as well as children to get onto YouTube and find new fun content that's about learning different types of subjects. So these 2 different efforts that were just launched here the last 4 or 5 days, were specifically tried to address the fact that we have pretty much a massive amount of kids who are now at home, who are some who don't have access to school curriculum because they just aren't set up, but they do have access to this, which is their phone, right?
Right.
And so to have to put it in the hands of them in a common medium that most kids have, I'm not saying all, but most kids have, or someone in their household has this. Not everyone in the household has high-speed internet. Not everyone in their household has a nice laptop or computer.
Most.
But the ability to give them the content and the information that they need to continue learning in the medium that they're more comfortable with, which is obviously video, but also team with other types of applications like Duolingo, Khan Academy. There's a number of different ones. So if you go to any one of these 2 websites or links, then you will find the content there specifically for helping children learn or teach at home, and then content for kids depending on their age range to help them with help them find exciting things in discovering educational content.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because this environment has brought a lot of things to the forefront, but a lot of things we talked about back in the day, we always talked about when you're adopting a child and that child is biologically and wired up differently than you are skill set sometimes, and just to try to figure out, and we found out it seems like an adoption issue, but we found out it's an everybody issue. It's biological and adoptive parent issue, is trying to figure out how your kids learn best. And so if you figure out how they're literally wired to learn, whether they're a tactile learner and they need to touch and feel stuff like science projects and Play-Doh or that kind of thing, or if they are better watching a video or listening, just to listen to the instruction. There's so many different ways people learn, but we were trying to offer books and resources for them to learn how their children learn, and then find the resources out there and put it in front of them. So if you know for a fact that your child is a visual learner, then if you're having trouble teaching that child something at home now with the new arrangement, you can now go to YouTube and look at something, and they can have somebody is going to demonstrate how to do it on video somewhere. Especially if you guys are congregating all this information in one place, it's going to make it easier for parents to access that. We have a university store on our website at AdoptionDiscovery.org. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a university store that's got a lot of books that we recommend. But what we'll do is we'll put a link from that book when somebody purchases that book to be able to go to these two websites and pull up more tutorial information. So once you figure out how your child learns, and you can learn that information very young, 4 or 5-year-olds, you can ask them a series of questions and figure out not only their love language and how to best communicate with them, but also how they're wired to learn. And then you kind of adapt everything to that. And that's a lot of problems we have with schools. Don't necessarily teach the way that kids learn in a lot of situations. And that's not a, my child came from another country or my child came from another person. That is sometimes everybody's different and everybody learns differently. So we've got to adapt the environment to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, there's a lot of studies. There's a lot of information out there that that show that everyone learns differently, and there's different dimensions of learning. So you're spot on with that. Let me just correct myself. The actual URLs to this is for YouTube is at Learn at Home, just like it sounds, all one word. Learn at Home .withyoutube.com. And that is the YouTube channel specifically to helping kids and parents learn at home.
Perfect.
And then the one for just kind of teaching at home, kind of that is, believe it or not, is called teachfromhome.google.com.
Teachfromhome@google.com?
Teachfromhome.google.
Oh, .google. Okay.
.com.
All right, cool.
And so, yeah.
We'll add those links to those videos when we post them in those resources, but this is fantastic. What else do we need to know about coronavirus, quarantining, and Google?
The only thing I can say, right. I mean, most of this is already public information. Google has basically at first started with, I think a week ago or a week and a half ago, committed over $200 million to nonprofits, NGOs who are specifically working to educate people on the COVID-19 pandemic. We've now increased that to 800 million for those, and again, not just education and not just content, but also, you know, in the fight against that as well. But also, I'm sure as this goes forward, we'll continue to modify and bring more and more content to these things I just talked to you about, as well as look at how people are using our products and tools. So what I would do is just, you know, just be on the lookout for more things that would occur between now and say, you know, towards the summer of things that we're doing as a company. But there's definitely a sense of urgency in the company to help people out as they go through this. So I would just say, if you're using Google, right, using Google,
we are.
Yeah,
believe me, we are. I mean, that's the big thing. Probably what the number one Google right now is, what are the test results for my state today?
Right,
I don't know. You can speak to that more than I can, but I mean, you're Googling it constantly. It's because that's the most immediate information. And that's what everybody needs right now, is immediate information, because yesterday's information is really old news.
Yeah, and we have, speaking of that, you know, we are taking more and more, putting more and more effort to making sure that the news that gets out there as you search to it are factual, right? They've made a commitment to remove ads that are what they deem to be taking advantage of the situation, right? So ads that would advertise products or services that is, you know, more price gouging, or things that are inaccurate information, those kinds of things. So that takes an enormous amount of work. So people, you know, I know a lot of criticism has been put in place as why aren't companies like ours doing more to help with filtering that. You know, with over something like close to, you know, a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 billion people utilizing search, and people posting things, you know, every website, every blog, it is extremely difficult to go through that amount of content every day, every minute of every day, and to figure out what is and what isn't. The good thing is we have pretty good artificial intelligence, pretty good algorithm that helps us catch a lot of it. Still a lot of work to do, but the company's committed to making sure that we make sure the content that's there, right, that it's as accurate as we can foreseeably see it, as much as we can. But yeah, a lot of efforts being put into place to make sure that the information that you're doing, that you're searching, right, is one that is legitimate information, right, and the ones that are most important get up to the first top of your search, right. Again, it's not perfect. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of times when we won't get everything right, but as far as this current situation, yeah, the company's committed to making sure it does its part in helping eradicate the virus.
Yeah, billions of dollars committed. That's crazy. That's crazy money. We're
Yeah.
seeing these huge numbers being thrown around every day, and I'm like, where is this money coming from? This is it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
But it's. I'm glad that we're using it for the greater good, and I'm glad that I think it's a worldwide reset. Everybody's kind of having to stop and take account of what they have, what they need, what they don't have, what they want, in every aspect of their life. And it's really become eye-opening to see how people react to this whole change of situation for the world. It's one thing. I grew up in hurricane-affected area, and when they would say state of emergency, for us, it was like, okay, we knew what that meant. That meant go to the store, get certain things. You had a checklist of things. You had to make sure that certain things were battened down around your house, and you went through the checklist. But it was like the state of emergency was all of a sudden for the entire world, not just one area of a state, but literally for the entire world. And everybody was like, I don't have a checklist.
Yeah. I don't think pandemic there's a checklist for a pandemic necessarily.
I think we'll have one after this, and you guys may be responsible for that. I don't know. I'm not going to put that pressure on you. I know you're
okay
right now.
One more thing for us to do, Bridget. Thanks.
Yeah, right. Appreciate it. That's what I'm here for, just to help you out. I really appreciate all the information that you've given us today. And if you have any new and developing information to offer, would you mind coming back on and doing some shorts for us if we need it?
I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.